about it. Tina in South Africa, we're just speaking about it. They are doing it, but no one is calling them xenophobic. Tina was saying that let it be done because that is what all countries are doing. Tanzania passed a law that is banning, foreigners or people who are not Tanzanians from operating some sectors of the economy. No one said they are xenophobic. So for me, I'm not at all worried. And of illegal miners. Remember, one of the ministers said those people must be smoked out, which is something that ordinarily would do. If a criminal is hiding in a place, you use whatever means to get that criminal to move or to come out of the place they're hiding in. Anyone can come from wherever in the country and do whatever they please.
No regulation.
No regulation, precisely because, again, I want to state that ANC wanted to prove to the world, because remember there was anxiety to say, once you take over power as black people, will you avenge your comrades that were killed by the second level of the problem, the members of the ANC who elect corrupt, immoral people to lead us, and then the problem to lead them as the ANC. And then the biggest culprits are the voters who vote that these, I almost use the word that is not parliamentary. They were co-opted, they became part of the system. So when you look at Ramaphosa, don't look at Ramaphosa outside of the system. He's part of the system. Like what you said earlier, where he said, I'm a mine owner. Do you think I will advocate or advance for policies that will take what I have as mines and benefit the South African citizens? That will tell you he's part of the system. But guess what? He's not the only one. If you're to check the members' declaration of members of parliament, you will see majority of the ministers, they've got shares in all of these institutions. If it's not banned, now so disappointed to find that even COSATU leaders who were advocating that we need to do away with labor brokers, they were part owners or shareholders.
Mashiane Politically Incorrect, we've got one of the sharpest brains in South African politics. The youngest, they come fresh. They don't come like Mthatha. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to throw him with icebreakers. Thandiswa Zungula. Icebreakers in our channel is we just throw you some difficult, some very easy, and then you will choose. But we just hope you take one. The reason we hope you take one is because we do not want our people to think you are a coward, because we know you are not a coward. We know you are not a coward. So I'm going to start right away. Let me start with a relatively easy one. Bafana or Springboks? You can explain why.
Bafana. I grew up playing soccer, so I'm more aligned with soccer than rugby.
Okay. Jacob Zuma or Julius Malema?
Both.
There goes the coward in you.
No, both. They both offer something in our politics. And when it comes to black politicians who advocate for, the policies I resonate with, I'll never choose one over the other, especially in this environment we're in. It's very important for all of us to really preach a message of unity, because that's what we need as black people.
Okay.
I know you mean well, but other people can interpret as if, I'm choosing this one over that one.
Okay. Maybe you'll tell me off camera what are his choices. Christianity or Islam?
Christianity.
Okay. Now help me with this one.
Wait. when it comes to Christianity or Islam, there's something that is above. If you regard spirituality,
Yes.
because Christianity is spirituality. And the reason why I'm giving context, because other people view Christianity as just a rules-based, religious dogma system that regulates how one person ought to relate with God. And also people view it as a part of a colonial system whereby they say it is the church that colonized the minds of people to say they must not fight for the land, or they must allow their lands to be taken, etc. But once you speak spirituality, you are speaking about something that we already practiced as Africans. So it's just a case of giving it context. So even how I view or practice Christianity, I believe in a Christ that is not that belongs to, for example, a certain country in Europe or elsewhere, but a Christ that is a spirit that dwells within a human being, and a Christ that would inspire, just like he inspired the likes of Robert Sobukwe or Tambo, Steve Biko, because they were deeply spiritual themselves. So that is what I subscribe to.
Thank you for the clarity. He was explaining why he chose Christianity over Islam. Okay, I'm gonna try this one. Inkosi Buyelikhaya Dalidiev. I'm always battling with this name. And King Misizulu. It's a preference.
I'll choose the third choice, King Zolozuk, because Ndilimpondomise. So for me, all of my kings, they are very important. Ukumkani, uNdlovyezwe, Isilo, Samabandla, Ingonyama, Olangalibalelwa, Amahlubi, Kumkani, Udalindyebo, all of them are very important to me. But because you didn't mention my one, Mampondomise, I'll just say King Zolozuk.
The reason I'm laughing is
I'm giving context to everything.
Ramaphosa or Helen Zille?
Neither.
But choose one. There must be a better devil.
Give me 0 for that one.
You're skipping this one.
Give me 0, man.
Here's another difficult one. Ushembe or Lechanyani.
Equally, they're very important because, again, the indigenous churches. If there's one thing that is so amazing about indigenous churches in our country, it's how, number one, there's a connection between what the faith, how they practice it, in line with our customs, our traditions as abantu abamnyama. When you go to, for example, Kwashembe, you don't feel as if, you would not think that you are in another country, you would not think that you're in Australia. There are some institutions whereby when you go there, if you were to listen to the sermon, listen to how they sing, how they do everything, the manner in which they do it here is like how they do it in Australia. So it's very encouraging and inspiring to have a faith that is rooted on our customs as Black people.
Okay. And this you equate to both the churches, ne? Political. Bantu bonke Biko or Chris Hani?
Boitfu. Both of them, for me, they're my heroes. Actually, I was reading a book by, Steve Biko, which is a collection of his letters and what he's been doing during the time he was alive. Only found inspiration. Chris Hani, the same thing. So for me, both are heroes in which all Black people in our country should view Steve Biko, Mamuini, Robert Sobukwe, Tato Tambo as our heroes.
Easy one. Chiefs or Pirates?
Pirates.
You are choosing well. You are choosing well. Robert Mugabe or Samora Machel?
I would like to lean towards Samora Machel.
Franklin Tate?
Samora Machel, he did a lot, especially when it comes to assisting the countries in SADC, when it comes to, the challenges when they were fighting for independence. Not taking anything away from Robert Mugabe, but it's a case of leaning more towards Samora, his legacy as well, how Mozambicans speak about him versus how Zimbabweans speak about Robert Mugabe. There's a big difference there.
Do you think, and I've not ended, I'm just thinking, do you think Robert Mugabe stands on being a frontline state, making Zimbabwe a frontline state? Do you think it was genuine? Because I do know Samara Machel, he was genuine in helping us. Mugabe, people say it was some sort of a convenience because he only later wanted to associate himself with the other frontline states. Do you think Mugabe was genuine in fighting, in helping South Africans?
Not necessarily. If you were to go to Zimbabwe now, there's still, instances whereby the relations, I know the relationship between Zimbabwe and South Africa, especially when it comes to citizens, not the government now, it's tricky because of, the issues that we're facing as South Africans. But if you look at the relations with Zimbabwe and other neighboring countries as well, whether it's Zambia, it's Mozambique, or it's Namibia, there's going to be issues as well. So I don't think he was necessarily genuine. Maybe it was a case of everyone is doing it, and he was expected also to be a frontline state at the time. But, his recorded comments whereby he's like, asizingeni, South Africa must fend for itself. It speaks volumes because at the time, during times of solidarity, you needed the leaders of, the neighboring countries to be firm, to be outright, to say, we are going to support our brothers and sisters in South Africa, something that at that time he failed to do.
Thank you very much. The biggest one that no one, Patrice Lumumba or Thomas Sankara, it's very difficult, I know, but let's hear.
Both. However, I lean more towards Thomas Sankara because, with Thomas Sankara, there is, there's recorded victories or successes under his presidency. Perhaps Lumumba's presidency was cut short, therefore he might not have had the time to actually implement what he would have implemented and achieved, just like Sankara. But with the few years that Sankara was in power, it was very clear the direction that was taken. So there's much more to take off Sankara's time in leadership as opposed to Lumumba. So that's why it's difficult to, make it as if he was a failure or he was poorer than Sankara. It's just a question of how much time did one spend in the higher levels of power.
Okay. Chief Albert Luthuli, Mangaliso Sobukwe.
Sobukwe. I lean more towards Sobukwe. In fact, Sobukwe.
Yeah.
Outright Sobukwe.
Yes. Okay. This is the last one, man. This is the last one. Musima Imani or Sulimsima.
The DA people.
Yeah.
Neither. It's the same as Helen Zille and Ramaphosa. For me, I would not be able to. People make contributions, the manner in which they believe they make contributions in our country. Mm-hmm. But I will always be choosing a person who really wants justice for the over 400 years of colonization and apartheid rule in our country. It would be difficult for me to give kudos to someone who is like, no, let us live, together with white people and let's leave what's in the past. We need justice because, if you walk around South Africa, you see how black people were pushed to, small pieces of land whereby they built townships. And what is emanating now from those townships, because the violence that we see there, the underdevelopment that we see there, and all of the issues, everything that you see wrong in the townships is not necessarily as a result of the people living in the townships. It is a result of a system that took people from having, proper land, but they were boxed in a small piece of land. And what's going to happen? They are going to fight. If you were to have a 2-bedroom flat, even if you have that 2-bedroom flat in Camps Bay, but immediately you take 10 people to live in that same 2-bedroom flat, there's bound to be conflict because it's not conducive. So the reason why I find it difficult for people who are against the transformation of the economy, the land expropriation without compensation, whereby we give the original owners their land because it is justice. So I find it difficult for me to say kudos to any one of them.
Talking about that, you are often confused, and I say it a lot in this podcast, that the tag of being Afrophobe and xenophobe, it is deliberately used. It is deliberately used to we had Stratcom in the 80s, and there were words that were used deliberately to make people feel like our freedom fighters were called communists, as if communist is a bad thing, because then it was equivalent to a terrorist. So I want to ask you, do you worry about being labeled as a xenophobe and as an Afrophobe just because you want to push for the interest of citizens?
Not at all. Fortunately for me, I'm not easily swayed by, as you say, people want to put you off.
Yes.
People who are using terms trying to silence you, because any person who is realistic can say what we are pushing for when we are saying respect the laws. The laws of our countries must be enforced. The citizens must be prioritized. A person that is rational can say, but this is what is done in all countries.
Yes.
As recent as last year, Zimbabwe passed, in fact, they were not even passing it, they were enforcing it. I remember I was watching a clip of a minister going in the streets of Zimbabwe saying that the laws of Zimbabwe is saying, if you want to trade, you need to partner with a local, you can't trade in some businesses. No one called them xenophobic. They are not speaking about it. Tina in South Africa, we're just speaking about it. They are doing it, but no one is calling them xenophobic. Tina was saying that let it be done because that is what all countries are doing. Tanzania passed a law that is banning, foreigners or people who are not Tanzanians from operating some sectors of the economy. No one said they are xenophobic. So for me, I'm not at all worried. And fortunately for me, I'm also the SG of the Africa Young Parliamentarians Network, which is a network of young MPs from across the continent. There's not even one MP that has said, but your views are xenophobic, because they know, and I keep telling them, what are you doing in your respective countries? You are advancing the interests of your own citizens. So I can never be labeled as someone that is wrong when I'm equally doing what other people are doing in the other countries.
The ATM, you started off the blocks with, you performed. You're a young party and you got into parliament and you performed. And for someone who doesn't come from, I'm not going to use mainstream background of politics, especially from big political parties, and to land in the National Assembly, it must have been a big cultural shock. What do you think made you acclimatize very quickly and punch above what people thought was, this is your weight, and you punched above? And you only have 2 seats, right? What do you attribute that to?
It's being thrown at the deep end. Because first day, it's the swearing in of members. And after the swearing in of members, the president gets to be elected. So after the president is elected, party leaders had to make speeches. As raw as I was, as new as I was, I had to go there and speak. So, and for me, that is a classic being thrown at the deep end. Unlike other leaders, maybe who had time to acclimatize themselves to the operations of parliament, for me, it was just thrown at the deep end. So I think what helps us a lot as the ATM is that we don't speak what is in our mind in the sense that sithetha into zethu. Rather, we speak the wishes and the aspirations of South African citizens. We spend so much time discussing, hearing the citizens as to what they want. And we understand Parliament that it is not a space whereby we impose our own selves as members there. Rather, we understand Parliament as a platform whereby we, the two members of ATM that are members of Parliament, we are the mouthpiece, or rather the voices of the people. So when you know and that you are representing the people, this is what the people want, then it becomes easier because you sleep much better at night because you know that uthetha lento ifunwa ngabantu. Unlike a case whereby you are going to go there, push your own interests and your own agendas which do not advance the interests of the people, then you should not be sleeping at all. And secondly, you should not be performing at all because you are not advancing what you should be advancing. So for us, what has kept us going, it is that peace and comfort of knowing that we are the voice of the people. Ours is to listen to what the people are saying. We go to Parliament and open our mouths and let the cries, the aspirations, the frustrations of the people be expressed through us.
Thank you. You will see I've not prepared any questions. The only questions that I prepared as the icebreaker because I love conversations. And if you think as the ATM, there's something that you want to say, I want you to feel free to say it. Please tell our audience who are ATM, because I have in my work on the ground, I've interacted with servants and I know what they are about, but I don't know intrinsically what are the organizational ethos and missions, but I know you are value driven. And with your values, I know you aspire certain things to change South Africa, and of which I come from student politics. I come from activism, and I know I don't agree with your way of doing politics. And that is because I come from a different school. And I always applaud political parties who give us people who are not out and out politicians, because it gives an opportunity for Dr. Nasipi Moya, Xolani Khumalo, Herman Mashaba, because they bring change. And this is why you have made such an impact in South Africa. Just tell the audience, who are the ATM servants and what is it that you guys do? And maybe the ethos of your parties, just so people can understand.
Yeah, so on that one, yes, the issue of values is very important because one of the things that fundamentally we identified as one of the things that inhibits progress in our country, it is predominantly how Black people approach politics. We approach politics from the point of departure. If you are wearing a pink t-shirt of your political party, I'm wearing white, then the point of departure is that we're enemies. There's a guy who was very active on Twitter. I think he was a bishop and he was in another political party. When we're starting off, he made a comment after hearing our position on land. And then he said, now that I understand what's your position on one or two issues, I will not recognize you or regard you as my enemy. Now, you find that ideally what we should be doing, especially as Black people, it is to collaborate, it is to work together, it is to advance the interests of the oppressed and marginalized, which are predominantly black people in our country. Now, to have a state whereby the mere fact that you belong to a different political party, I regard you as an enemy, yet you are oppressed as much as I'm oppressed. You are, the system fights you as much as it is fighting me. But I've been convinced that what characterizes an enemy is just a different color of a party T-shirt. So when we speak about the values, we speak about values whereby we speak about Ubuntu. Because at the end of the day, umntu ngumntu ngabantu. We must not leave or start our journey in politics on the premise that we're enemies by the virtue of us belonging to in different political parties. Because when we speak about a value system, a values-driven system, it is also to deal with what we see in our country. There's a lot of violence. Ask ourselves, who is killing who in our country? And there's a lot of exploitation. Exploitation is not only done by the rich white, corporations. There's also black people who are exploiting other black people. There's also the issue of corruption. Corruption, put aside the fact that, people have gone to be accustomed to corruption. But corruption exposes that you do not have a value system. You don't have people about Ubuntu. Because if you had leaders that have Ubuntu, there is no way you could, spend money that belongs to your people. And then when, you want to fund trips for your slay queens, others, they even pay for the BBLs of their slay queens. That's how the system of corruption actually operates. And it speaks to the death of morality, the death of Ubuntu within citizens. So when we're saying that let us be values-based, it is because we clearly understand that if we do not fix the mentality of the leaders that we have in our country, you will still have another government, but if they are still corrupt, ngaphakathi kwabo, they are going to try to find means and ways to steal money. During COVID, it was so sad that you had, some government departments giving food parcels to councillors to say, councillors, distribute these food parcels to people in your wards that are the poorest of the poor, poor of the poorest, people who can't even have, food for themselves. But because people are so accustomed to corruption, bazogcwalisa their entire garages with all of those food parcels. Next door, there's someone who's going to bed hungry. So that is why we're identifying Tinukuba. Once you don't have leaders with Ubuntu, they will always try to find means and ways to steal. You could have an auditor general with increased powers. You could have SIUs. You could have the NPAs. But a thief, someone who wants to steal, will try to find means and ways to steal. But if you have someone that places the lives of the people that is serving, that's why we call ourselves servants, because we are here to serve the people. Once you've got someone or leaders that understand that we are servants of the people, we exist primarily to better the lives of the poor, of the people who can't speak for themselves, then whatever that we do, our entire ethos, our entire DNA is that we are here to serve our people. So that is why for us, ethos is very important in politics, because it addresses the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem, it is not that we have an ineffective justice system, because even if the justice system was not effective, if you had leaders that did not have the zeal to steal, then we would not have the crisis that we have now. So that is our ethos as a party.
Yeah, you spoke about enemies, meaning that it should almost be automatic that Black African parties should not see each other as enemies. Just as a preamble, just you see a party, you automatically regard them as an enemies. But the two biggest progressive caucus parties are enemies. And I'm saying enemies because I'm not manufacturing it. Julius Malema has indicated that MK party is their enemy. Their enemy is MK party. And you sit there with UAT, for example. Does that upset the temperature that we were hoping for? Because now you are fighting, so you are in a camp as a progressive caucus, and you have, because you are a group, you have virtually declared yourself as a opposition party, as a group, as a bloc. But this opposition party becomes divided, almost as divided as the GNU. It weakens you when your two biggest parties declare themselves as enemies, as it were. Does it concern you that that has happened, and has it weakened the progressive caucus? And are you having regular meetings as you should?
If you were to look at when the progressive caucus was basically I could say when it was launched, when we went out as the parties and, at a press conference saying this is who we are, progressive caucus, this is, what we're going to be driving in parliament. I can tell you now, we captured the imagination of Black people. Black people started having hope again to say, yes, this is what we want, that Black parties, Black leaders are going to work together to advance the interests of the collective of abantu abamnyama. Therefore, anything that would regress from that particular mood and that imagination that was there, that hope that was there at that time, surely will never be okay with it. Surely will never be comfortable with it and this is not like a personal view, because if millions of South Africans, Black people, are going to have hope because their leaders or the different political parties have suddenly started working together. And Black people understand that you can't, as a singular party, effect change in parliament in the manner that is required. No matter what the party, even the ANC, even if, for example, come 2027, there could be a progressive leader there who wants to work with other progressive parties. Alone as the ANC, they are not in a position to effect change. Alone as the different political parties, they are not going to be in a position, because we agree, all of these parties, if you read their manifestos, they speak about land expropriation without compensation. What is required for that to happen? It is a 2/3 majority. Is there a party in South Africa now that has got a 2/3 majority? The answer is no. And if you were to listen or watch the polls, are the polls saying that maybe in the next election in 2029, there's going to be one party that has a 2/3 majority? The answer is no. So asina choice as abantu abamnyama. The only thing that we have to do, it is to find a way to work together. And this working together, like we've always been stating as the ATM, it does not require that one party must be dissolved, another party must be swallowed by another party. We could still have our own different political parties, but we work together in parliament. We work together even outside of parliament, so that even other Black people can realize that Umtu Omnyama is not your enemy. Your enemy is a system that keeps all Black people oppressed in their own country of their forefathers.
Are you having regular meetings?
When it comes to meeting, we were having meetings last year, just that now we've not opened, so there's nothing in 2026 that has happened, because even the midterm budget that we had last week, some people were virtual, they were not physical in Cape Town. I do anticipate that when we go back from the SONA moving forward, we are going to continue where we left off, because it worked. I remember sometime, I think it was last year, it was before a budget discussion. I'm not sure the exact meeting, but we met, we spoke, we strategized. When we went to the house, there was synergy. We were working together.
Who chairs these meetings?
The MK chief whip chairs because they are the largest party in the caucus.
And all 4 members are 5 members, right? It's 5 members.
Yeah, no, we don't use that approach whereby it's one person from each party.
Yes, no, I'm just saying members as in political parties.
Yes.
Yeah, 5 political parties. I'm just saying 5 members. So 5 political parties are all present, are all participating.
Yeah.
To the satisfaction of everyone. So the temperature has not changed.
Yeah, because we deal with the issues.
Yes.
Maybe immediately we deal with the personalities, we deal with intra-party issues. Perhaps the mood would be something else.
Okay.
But once we call a meeting, we're saying, here's a budget that will be tabled, and here are the issues with this budget. And perhaps these are the strategies we can advance for us to represent our people so that we have a proper budget. When we have such engagements, it is always, cordial. It is always what the people want, basically.
The people, actually, you are correct. The people wanted and were very appreciative of the Progressive Caucus. I'm one of those who came here and sang good praises for this collective team. Voting bloc. I'm still worried that even though you agree with each other, but you have not created a voting bloc. We are into the season of the budget speeches. A lot of things are going to be debated. Parties can debate, but when it comes to voting, are you going to be so united that even on voting bloc, you are going to be seeing each other? Because I'm saying so because Colin Makubele's entrance into the whippery started with a big flop when they misread the House and what motions they vote against, and then they voted for a motion, and that saw that the Progressive Caucus was not as united because he did not even mature into a voting bloc. Is it realistic that within a year you would be so united that you would even create a single voting bloc to say, guys, we have decided all these individual reports we voted against, so even this one voting bloc, no, not even a debate. Are you going to that stage?
Even last year, when we vote there, we vote as a bloc, in the sense that when we reject together. When we're okay together. Even the instance that you are referring to, it was a matter of her misunderstanding what the presiding officer has said. That is why when she was alerted, no, that is not what the presiding officer was saying. She quickly changed her position to be aligned with what EFF, ATM, UAT, and CCC was basically saying. So the voting bloc is there in Parliament. We are speaking in one voice because, again, we are emphasizing the issues. We are clear, as all of these parties, read their manifestos, read the political, direction of the different political parties, read even the submissions in terms of the speeches in Parliament on where we stand when it comes to the issues of the budget. We are aligned.
So I listened to the teachings of Grandmaster Tautau. So the Grandmaster teaches us that he speaks this in particular to the Americans. And this is why I said I disagree with ATM's approach of instilling values to people who don't want these values. Grandmaster Tautau teaches us that power accedes to power. You cannot, I'm just using my own words, you cannot have a flower. Someone is pointing a gun at you and you want to convince them with a flower. He says Africans must arm themselves if they want to pursue things. And I feel, let's say, the problems that are plaguing South Africa. People who stole money at Tembisa, they know they're not supposed to. People who jump the border and use their power and strength to fight South African government and break our rules. They know they could use the same power to fight in their own country and get the country that they want. And they know that they are going to be exploited. They demean the gains that South Africans have made in making sure that multinational corporations pay Africans value for their labor. They know that. They just come and betray us and cheapen the labor and make us slaves. They know all of these things. They know they're betraying their values, united values as Africans. But you know what they're going to do, Comrade Zungula? They're just going to keep doing it because you're not enforcing them. You are begging them to attain values. Do you think pushing values instead of enforcing things will work? Because I've said in the podcast, I hate Ubuntu. The reason I hate Ubuntu is it is that which enabled the Europeans to enslave us, because we kept looking at Ubuntu. We were kind. We were far too kind to our oppressors, and that's why they took advantage of us. Because people will say, look at how proud and strong Africans are. I mean, there's no way, 50,000 Zulus could be taken out by Martin Henry wielding guns like that. It would have been impossible. We lost wars that we were not supposed to even lose. That's a matter for another day. But I disagree with you on that as a person. What if these values don't change what you want? What is the next step?
There's no contradiction in the sense that when we're speaking about values, it's like making a person to be conscious about their actions and their implications on what they do. However, when you speak about the policies in terms of what should be enforced, when we're saying that there must be a death penalty in our country, people started saying, anina Ubuntu, you don't have Ubuntu, but aren't you contradicting yourself to say Ubuntu on this side, death penalty on this side? But we're saying, you can't repeatedly be killing people and all you get is like a paid holiday in prison, because when you are there, you're actually getting paid because you've got 3 meals, you've got education.
You're not even working.
You're not even working. We, as the hardworking, honest civilians or citizens, are working for you because everything that you have there in prison, it is coming from our own blood and sweat. Yet when, as a person who has wronged society, you're just chilling there, enjoying 3 meals a day, enjoying proper protection, you don't have load shedding, you have water, you do not suffer. The people who are suffering are outside. That is why most of people who are released from prison, they commit crimes so that they are taken back to prison because it's much better. So it is because other people, they think that we have a soft approach when it comes to enforcing. Our laws that we are advancing as a party, they're very clear. We would not have pushed, what we've pushed in terms of our submissions in Parliament when it comes to really ensuring that we get the country right. Other people like, if South Africa would be under the rule of the ATM, izinto zingama ngoline. It is because we, exactly how we are putting it, power is power. When you are in power, you need to effect power. We do not agree with this soft approach of the ANC. In fact, the ANC or the GNU is the party or a government that ignores the problem, hoping it will go away. They are maybe fearing to be called names. Look, for example, the alcohol abuse crisis that we have in our country. Everyone knows that we've got a problem of alcohol abuse. There's nothing even firm coming from the ANC or the government to say, how about we change, for example, the liquor license times of operation, where you can't sell after a certain time. We punish severely, people like Enyobeni, whereby young kids died. Because there is evidence coming from the times of COVID lockdown, whereby it was evidently clear that alcohol is a major contributor to the overwhelming of our hospitals because of the accidents that are caused, because of the fights and the stabbing or the killing of each other, people can see that alcohol has got more negative effects than what if a person would want to say there are positive effects in our country, in our economy. But where's the ANC to say anything about that? We've got a crisis whereby you've got undocumented people, like, for example, the issue of illegal miners. Remember, one of the ministers said those people must be smoked out, which is something that ordinarily would do. If a criminal is hiding in a place, you use whatever means to get that criminal to move or to come out of the place they're hiding in so that we can arrest them and then they can be sentenced to prison for a very long time. But people started making noise to say, human rights, don't. So maybe the other issue with the ANC, or rather the government, it is the misuse of human rights to the detriment of law-abiding citizens. Because they'll scream human rights when General Mkhwanazi and the police in KZN are actually eliminating criminals.
Yes.
And it's something that we'll never understand, because my understanding, if you are a criminal and you point a gun at me, I must not wait for you to shoot first and hope that you'll miss, or maybe you'll strike me in the arm, and then maybe I'll survive. Because pointing a gun at someone, that alone is attempted murder. My life is at risk. Now, if you are pointing a gun at me, I must not even wait for you to shoot first. I must shoot you first, eliminate you before you eliminate me. However, what do these so-called human rights organizations about the good work that is done by the KZN police? They are trying to be creative, saying, no, they're abusing the human rights. Similarly, you've got organizations that go to court to protect people, illegal miners, who are, number one, illegal in the country, number two, illegally mining, number three, the amount of criminality that comes with that trade. I sit in the Mineral and Petroleum Portfolio Committee. There was a time whereby a minister came and gave a presentation about the state of illegal mining. He made reference to a case whereby there was a woman that was abducted by those guys. They took him down the shaft underground. They raped that woman for weeks, all 20, 30 of those guys. Now you tell me, Ukuba, those animals, can be treated as ordinary humans who are humane, because there's nothing humane when you take, a person, rape, number one. Number two, you make this person to go, you abduct this person, underground in an environment that she's not even used to. And then when she's there, 30 different people rape that person. And then you are going to have human rights NGOs who are saying, forget the woman that has been violated. Let us protect the violators, because they too have human rights. So South Africa as a country has got a problem when it comes to being too academic, when it comes to the issues that are being faced to the people. I remember General Mkhwanazi correctly said, all of these human rights experts, they must please join, the KZN police. When they're having, when they're chasing criminals, let them go there and let them be the ones who are saying, please don't shoot. Please come, let me arrest you, so that they can see what the police officers are dealing with on a daily basis. Let them go to the communities that are close to the, through the illegal mining hotspots. Let them walk around as women there, see what will happen to them. Let them as men walk around and see what will happen to them. So the other issue is that South Africa, from 1994, even this so-called best constitution in the world, it was driven or crafted by people who wanted to appear to the world to be like, we are going to be the opposite of the cruel, inhumane apartheid government was, not taking into account that we're dealing here with human beings, and especially in the context of government, they are very complex. Therefore, you can't have a system of laws that are too open, too understanding, because you are going to have what we have now in South Africa, whereby criminals enjoy more rights than ordinary law-abiding citizens.
You linked and deliberately the NGOs with illegal mining, and so I want you to think of these things, because I'm gonna throw it back at you. I want you to unpack. These NGOs don't have our interest as South Africans at heart, and some of them are not even South Africans, but they determine, they lobby and put the trajectory of South Africa in a way that gives their interest in protecting certain multinational corporations. Number two, link it with illicit financial flows. Thabo Mbeki has done a study on that. He saw trillions leaving Africa as a continent. He came back, he kept mum, and he does not want to tell us who are these organizations. I want you to link it as well. Illegal mining cannot be discussed without human trafficking, because they need labor that is free. They need people to take down to appease the morale of those slaves, those animals that you're talking about. And the last one, of course, is if you want to put it nicely, you can say artisanal mining. But artisanal mining versus local manufacturing, all of these things, please unpack it just for the audience to understand where you come from as ATM. What are your understanding about all of these things? I'm throwing back at you.
You know, the country, it's a country that became too open. Anyone can come from wherever in the country and do whatever they please.
No regulation.
No regulation, precisely because, again, I want to state that ANC wanted to prove to the world, because remember there was anxiety to say, once you take over power as black people, will you avenge your comrades that were killed by these people, white minority that were oppressing you? Now, ANC at the time wanted to appease the world to say, you know what, we are going to be the opposite. In fact, look at our constitution. We are going to sit down with our oppressors. They are going to, have a voice in terms of drafting our own constitution. We'll not have a constitution that advances the interest of the oppressed, the marginalized, the people that were, abused in their own country for years. We are going to be so accommodative to an extent that we are going to give power to people who still wanted to oppress us, to have a voice in terms of our constitution, in terms of how, the country can be governed. Now, compare our constitution, for example, on the issue of the environment with the Namibian constitution. I think it's Article 15 of the Namibian constitution that places the right or obligation of protecting the environment to the government. Now, meaning it is the government that will advance for any policy, any program that will be protecting the environment in Namibia. Whereas in South Africa, the part that talks about the environment, it will be so open, which brings me to this point of, you hear when we decry about the use of the word everyone in the constitution.
Yes, everyone.
Everyone.
It opens the floodgates.
Exactly.
That's why they access, even a criminal, an illegal criminal, can come to South Africa and want to demand to access certain things, because we said everyone. Yeah.
So in this context, a company or an NGO that is belonging to or representing Canadian interests, in fact, not even the Canadian government, one billionaire who has made so much money, does not know what to do with it, decides to fund organizations that are going to target Africa and say, no, we, as these NGOs, we are going to ensure that governments in Africa protect the environment. Yet those very same NGOs in their host countries where they're coming from, where they are funded, they do not have the same levels of power that they have in our country. So that everyone now places South Africa in a situation whereby anyone and everyone can have a say in terms of the politics, the policies, and the government programs in South Africa. That is why, as a party, we drafted and submitted a foreign agents bill to seek to regulate the foreign agents, which are predominantly NGOs that are operating in our country, so that it can't be free for all. You know, there must be some form of a regulation. Now, coming to your point about the issues of human trafficking, illegal mining, it is precisely because if South Africa were to be a law-abiding country whereby laws are being adhered to and they are enforced to the T by the government, you would not have these high levels of crime, poverty, unemployment as you see, precisely because the resources of South Africa would benefit South Africans. You would have a case whereby if you have a company and you are making X amount of money in the South African economy, the laws will dictate that you can't just move your profits to other jurisdictions. They must be reinvested in this economy so that they grow our economy and jobs can be created. And if you are employing people, you would not just choose to employ someone coming from a neighboring country precisely because you will underpay them. Because if you employ a South African, there's so much that needs to happen. There needs to be registered, with the Department of Labor. There needs to be UIF, medical aid, and all of these conditions, which rightly is something that we've been fighting for from the time, apartheid ended in South Africa. So the issue that we have in our country is that lawlessness, it is designed to profit the multinationals that are extracting the wealth of our country. Hence, you are finding that in the issue of illegal mining as well, I can assure you, the mines or mining companies that we have in our country are involved in that trade, because there is no way you find that a person, because we know that illegal mining in our country, it is Basotho, it is Mozambicans, Zimbabweans predominantly. The stats are there to show. There's a report that we saw about the people that were arrested. There was a 12-year-old boy from Mozambique in one of the people that were arrested. Now tell me, where does that 12-year-old know Okuba, after they've extracted the gold, this is where it must be sold? There is a network of criminals, there's a syndicate, and that syndicate includes these mining houses, because they know these mining houses that if you have illegal miners, what's going to happen is that the risk is for the illegal miners, but the reward is for them as the mines. So that is the true nature of our country. And basically, in all sectors, it is lawlessness that is designed to benefit a certain group of people. Look at, for example, hospitality industry. Everyone knows that there are labor laws that need to be enforced, but the reason why they won't be enforced, it is because these companies would rather employ people from neighboring countries. Instead of paying them, let's say 50 rands an hour, they can pay them 5 rands. In some places, they can just pay them with alcohol or food, because they want to exploit. Now, all of this paints to the real culprit in our country. It is the government, and in particular ANC as an organization that has been in power since 1994. They are the ones to blame for all of the mess that we see in our country.
Everyone, it is said, it was coined by the Kliptown Congress of the People. Most of the freedom fighters that I sat with here, I asked, who do you think authored that document, the Freedom Charter? Is it our own document as Africans? People said, no, actually, it is the Jews who wrote the document and pushed it, and our comrades allowed it to be signed to represent the interest of all South Africans. And instead, everyone who lives in the country, South Africa belonged to everyone who lived in the country. And 1955 Kliptown had then started becoming a problem. That's why PAC went out. In fixing such issues, what is it that we need to do? Because I just gave an example of Thabo Mbeki after he left office. He was in charge of this financial, illicit financial flows. I mean, trillions of monies leaving Africa deliberately because they collapse these things. Collapse of these things is not a fluke. They deliberately collapse it because they want to take out money. We can't trust these people. Then what should we do? Because every multinational corporations fund NGOs. NGOs influence. That's why you would fight until you go into government. They will not push pressure for these NGOs to be regulated. They will not push pressure to see all the financial records of these organizations. If you were to receive 201,000, they want you because IDASA pushed for that. But this NGO, they can just receive 5 million. They do not even have to tell anyone where they got that 5 million, whether they got it from Trump or from Modi in India. You are not going to fight it until you get into government. And for you to get into government, someone must give you money to pump up your campaign. I call it a hard and a rock place in this podcast that I don't see how a small party like yourself will go into government, because you must then take this blood money from what we call them capital. Capital must give you money to pump up your campaign. There might be people who do not know ATM exists in Musina, but they are very important for you to vote for them, because if they vote for you, you'll be able to shield them from the Bait Bridge flows. I'm just giving an example of how you are. Someone needs to give you money, but unfortunately they will have to control you. Without that money, you will not have an ear, because you will not be protected like Cyril Ramaphosa, where the media is friendly to you. How do you get out of this quagmire?
As a party, last year, we submitted our inputs for the constitutional review process, because of the view, as you say, the root cause of our problems is with the constitution. Everyone there, the issues of allowing multinationals to have somewhat drain our wealth in terms of our mineral resources, and we are not really firm as to who must actually benefit when it comes to our minerals. So that is what we've been advancing in Parliament. And even this year, like I've stated, with the Foreign Agents Bill. So we are of the view that at times we will not be able to have one singular victory that will eliminate all of the problems, but it will be a series of victories, small steps, a series of small steps that will ultimately get us to where we need to be. So with the constitutional review process, all of these issues that we've been talking about as issues, they are there in terms of the solutions. And that is what, when that committee will be sitting from this year processing that is what we are going to be pushing. The Foreign Agents Bill, when it is allocated to a committee to process, that is where we'll be pushing that, we need to regulate all of these foreign agents, these NGOs. And on the issues, on the bread and butter issues as well, last year we even submitted a motion to say unemployment must be declared as a national disaster, so that it gives, flexibility in terms of the government to adequately respond to this crisis or disaster of unemployment. Just like, when there was COVID and there were lockdowns, all departments needed to give regular updates to the nation to say, in light of, the disaster, and this is what needed to be done. Remember COVID, immediately there was a lockdown. There were clear guidelines to say there must be masks, there must be the sanitizing, etc. So there was a clear program to deal with the crisis at the time. So what we're advancing, Tina, is to say unemployment must receive the same level of attention so that immediately we declare it as a national disaster. Small business must come out and say, this is what we are practically doing to deal with this disaster of unemployment. Employment and labor needs to do the same thing. Trade and industry need to do the same thing so that all departments within their space, they're able to communicate their programs or what is practically done to deal with the disaster, so that you don't have a case whereby, like we have now, you've got a disaster of unemployment. It's not yet declared as a disaster, but all of us know that you can't have a 43% of the country being unemployed and you think it's not a disaster.
The reason they think it's not a disaster is because it's deliberate. South Africans are not employed.
Yeah.
But capital does not lack labor. They know where they get cheap labor.
Yeah.
Yes. So they are not going to declare. There's a scenario where Floyd Shivambu speaks about his interactions with Ramaphosa. I can't get the right wording, but in essence, he says, Cyril told him, do you think I can pass laws that sabotage me? I will not.
I remember it was the question of the nationalization of the mines. And Cyril spoke to the effect that me, as a mine owner, are you expecting me to push for the legislation that will take my mines and give it to the state for the benefit of the people? The answer is no. Hence, I agree with you when you are saying that it is deliberate. It is deliberate as well in our view as a party to say, once you keep as many people unemployed and in poverty as possible, particularly the natives, what is going to happen is that as I'm waking up as a person that is unemployed, my occupation is that what am I going to eat in the evening? I will never have any imagination or any way of scrutinizing who are the mineral wealth owners in our country, who's owning the big industries in our country, who's owning the land, who's owning the banks, who's owning the means of production. My mind will never get me there, precisely because my stomach is the one that is saying, Puti, late in Zubendilambile, what will I eat? So it is a question whereby then the ANC, working together with the owners of the economy of our country, want to keep as many people in the bottom as possible, because should people start moving up, then some of the questions will start arising and transformation will not be backed, but it will be forced. But we can't force transformation in terms of our economy and the ownership patterns that are race-based. You can't then expect the poor to do that, because the poor, it is a human phenomenon. When you are hungry, the only thing that will think of is your next meal. You won't think of sophisticated industries and economies and how they could be transformed for the benefit of the people.
I want to take you back to local manufacturing, and I wanted it to link to scarcity of jobs, artisanal mining, illicit financial flow. So you keep solving these things. You might create local manufacturing, and with local manufacturing, you are actually going closer to what the ANC called the NDR and stuff, because then you would have industrialists, as they told us when we were growing up, this is where they are going, to create local industrialists. What is it about local manufacturing that you think we are failing? Because sitting and looking at things, there are a lot of things that I know. This is deliberate. They don't want this. This is deliberate. They don't want this. There's a handler that produces this, and they don't want South Africans to do this. We've got capacity to have pens. Someone doesn't want us to have pens. We've got Tabazimbi. I bet even if you Google, I've not done it, you might even find that paper clips. It's like the most basic of things we are hiring. So I just want to check with you. We are exporting. What is it about local manufacturing that you think this one South Africans can do? We don't need a lot of things. Just how do I say, relax certain laws so industries will just naturally will just go. If you look at videos on the internet, I mean, basic artisans in India would create certain things out of themselves. They will naturally become, they'll create, they'll create commercialized things because it's inherently an artisanal thing that produces it. About local manufacturing, what is that you think we can do?
It's, again, like I say, it's deliberate because ANC wants to keep people poor because poor people are easy to exploit, they're easy to control, they're easy, to say they must vote because you give them a t-shirt, you give them 350 rands, you tell them lies, and they do not have the capacity to challenge you on those lines because they are powerless. You have the power. When you've got money, go to your village. Even if you are a young man, if you've got money, because that is human nature. People tend to listen to the people with money. And unfortunately, in our communities, the people that have got money will be ANC comrades who are going to go to the poor people and say, no, vote for the ANC. But if the people were moneyed themselves, they would take much more informed decisions in terms of their votes and etc. Local manufacturing and production, I'm a living testament of how a community that has got factories is able to sustain itself. I grew up in Sobomvu, Egcuwa. It is about 100 kilometers from Emondi or so. In my township, which is Msobomvu, you just had to, from the township Msobomvu, you just had to cross the street. There were factories there and they were producing clothes. They were supplying PEP with clothes. And majority of the workers that were in those factories, they were coming from Msobomvu. And when we went to town now to buy clothes, we knew that what I'm buying from PEP in town is produced from the factory Msobomvu. So jobs were created and the money would even circulate because from my home, Msobomvu, I take, in fact, my uncle, masithi nguBhunsitho okanye nguBhutmuso okanye nguBhuzuko, who works in that factory, comes home at the end of the month and says, nansi imali, go buy a t-shirt. I go to PEP and I buy the t-shirt from PEP. PEP goes back to the same factory to procure the clothes, and that factory pays the very same Butzuko who gave me money. So that is how money was circulating, and there were jobs. There were people who were able to live. But in a case where now all of those factories deliberately were closed, we are in this crisis that we see. And if you look at the goods that we have in our country that we consume on a daily basis, toilet paper, toothpaste, soap, all of these goods that are consumed on a daily basis, I can tell you now, they are factories, because it's not only Egcuwa where there were factories. In Dimbaza, there were factories. Hammanskral, there were factories. Eqwaqwa, the infrastructure is still there, by the way.
Every township.
Ebotsabelo in Mangaung, there were factories, they are still there. The only issue is that the ANC, especially the ANC comrades, got into bed with perhaps some of these multinationals, and then they started to drive for policies that will kill the local textile industry. That is why we have this mess. It is currently happening now. If you look at the car sales, you find that the Asian produced and manufactured cars, their sales are increasing, your Jettos, your Omodas, your Cherries, etc. Yet the cars that have got plants in South Africa, your VW Polos, your
Ford,
your BMW, your Mercedes-Benz, their sales are decreasing. Now, you don't have now a government with foresight that is able to say, fine, we can't impose to South Africans that they must buy a Mercedes-Benz instead of a Cherry. Fine, government can't do that. But the government can go to the Cherry to say, you have had over 10,000 of your products being sold in our country. Now we're saying that go and open a factory in our country, or else we're going to increase the tariffs so that you force that company to produce in South Africa, to avert a situation whereby Mercedes-Benz closes down, Ford closes down, and all of those workers are going to be without jobs. But in the process, you are not inviting the other car producers to equally produce in our country. We don't have a government with foresight. We wrote to the Minister of Trade and Industry saying exactly what I'm saying now. Unfortunately, he only acknowledged our letter. He's not engaged us. We are going to push to have a sit down with him to say, but let him explain, to say the crisis that we are seeing, because what is currently happening in that industry, automotive industry, it is similar to what happened in the textile industry in the 90s. And the outcome, we know it, is that jobs, local jobs are going to be lost. And after local jobs are going to be lost, we are going to have a situation whereby South Africans, the unemployment, as it's sitting at 43% now, if Mercedes-Benz, your Fords, and the other companies close down, they close down, you know, it's not only them. The parts companies are also going to say, close down. There's also other industries that are linked to these companies. If you go to Ford, there's going to be a cleaning company. There's going to be a catering company. So there's other companies that are linked to that particular main company, which is Ford. They're going to close down. After closing down, what then happens is that we're going to have a crisis of reaching over 50% unemployment. That is why we said to the Minister of Trade and Industry, be proactive, Mhlekazi. Don't wait for a crisis to reach, high levels, and then you then want to come and seek to, act as if you are going to change a situation after the horse has already bolted.
That's typical ANC. And, we had ISCO and big steel companies, and the comrades have given it to ArcelorMittal. Pretoria West was a testament of how that industry grew. And, it collapsed, a big giant collapse in front of South Africans. Lessons were not learned. As we speak, ArcelorMittal plant is a ghost town. You removed something that was working. You replaced with something temporary just because these people are giving you money. And that thing has collapsed. It's a ghost town. If you go to that factory, it's a ghost town. Who should be blamed? When I say who should be blamed is, I want you to understand that you work with politicians. And I've started to brand my form of communication is, let's identify these people. This thing of running around of saying, no, it's a collective decision, but whenever it's victories, they say, no, this one is Thabo Mbeki. Who are these people involved in collapsing these things just so the other people can come in? And I can give you an example. The post bank, the post office, these things were deliberately killed for someone to enter in the market. Your Takealot, your Postnet, they thrive because someone assassinated institutions of government that were working properly. There were no problems with these things, but these things were killed. Who should be blamed? Are the intricacies so complex that they made it deliberately so we don't attach someone's legacy with collapse of our people? Because once these people cross the picket line, they stand these other side, they are traitors by definition of our 101 politics. Because they're no longer with us. They are that side, they are traitors. For an example, I stated for an example that Cyril Ramaphosa used to be a unionist who was with us this side, on this side of the picket lines. He went to the other side and joined Lonmin and pointed out to our people, said, those guys are enemies, take concomitant action against them. By definition, that person is a traitor. But even that, there are politicians who brought him back to come into his campaign and work with him. So I'm saying to you, it's so complex for us South Africans. You politicians must understand these things better. Who should we blame for this thing? These are glaring examples of people who have betrayed black people. Who should we blame?
ANC.
Are they signatures of individuals or kila collective?
Masiti ANC.
That's clear.
So ANC leaders. Mm-hmm. That's the first level. The second level, it is the members. And then the third level, it is the voters. The leaders are the ones that decide on driving policies that will collapse institutions that create jobs and service South Africans. And then when they are called out by the opposition, it is the members of the ANC that will come in each and every conference of the ANC to re-elect the very same people that have collapsed our institutions, that have collapsed our SOEs, that have collapsed functioning industries that were creating jobs for our people. They, the ANC people, they're so delusional. They'll tell you, so-and-so is the best leader, don't. And those people, when you look at their track record, there is nothing that they are doing except distraction. Look at the current crop of ANC leaders. That is what you are going to find. And then you are going to have now the ANC voters who are going to lie to themselves and say, better the devil we know. This party took us out of, apartheid. Yet it is the very same party that has allowed drugs to flourish in our communities. Sinama para, this concept of para, it's because of the ANC. Don't look at anything else besides the ANC. If anyone has got a problem, ne para, ladupali para, magayazi ukuba it is the ANC that is responsible for having amapara. Because I can tell you, remember COVID, that soldiers were kicking people back. They must stay indoors because they were very clear ukuba they wanted people to stay indoors during the times of COVID. What stops the ANC government from deploying the very same soldiers and police to say, we are going to clean our communities from drugs, we are going to clean our communities from all of these fake foods that are sold to the people? Now, voters, that is why I'm saying it is the leaders, because they are the ones that take the decisions. And I'm equally saying it is the members of the ANC, because it is the very same members who return those leaders to be, to be presidents, to be secretaries of the ANC, provincial chairpersons of the ANC, so that they have power to continue destroying our country. And then the last ones, it is the voters who then decide, but know what, let them give the ANC power to preside over government. It's not enough that they are ANC right inside the organization, they are leaders, whereby they are presidents, deputy president within the ANC. The voters are like, no, it's not enough that you are Ramaphosa, for example, the president of the ANC. We as the voters are going to put him in the union buildings so that he can destroy our lives. Kamnand. So it is the voters, people, because sometimes we are not going to go to the root cause of the problem. Let's say the ANC, people understood the ANC for what it is, a criminal organization that has got nothing to do that is in the best interest of the people. The only thing that the ANC is good at doing, it is stealing. It is allowing all forms of lawlessness. However, if people did not vote for the ANC, they would not be in power for them to do their criminal activities. The people that need to take accountability, it is your person that is going to watch this video who's going to say, hi, at the end of the year, get lo votela ANC, or ring. You are a problem. if people can recognize that if you vote for the ANC, vote for the DA, vote for any party in the GNU that is currently destroying our country. When you are looking for a problem of South African, for a culprit, the reason why we've got problems in the country, do not look further. Go and stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself. You are the problem because you are the one that has voted for the problem, which is all of these parties in the GNU, ANC in particular, to have power. Because what makes what the biggest issue here is that when people vote, they give power. When people give power to the ANC to allow drugs to flourish, you can't then be complaining about drugs. You are the one who voted for the biggest drug lord in the country to be in power. Do you think drug lords can get rid of other drug lords? Do you think corrupt people will ever fight corruption? Do you think people who are benefiting from all of this lawlessness are going to stop the lawlessness? Because if it was not profiting them, I can tell you, illegal mining would have stopped long ago. Look at COVID lockdown. If, people must just remember the level of political will in the lockdown period, whereby this thing of alcohol, because then perhaps there was a mandate to say alcohol must not be sold. There was law and order in our country. However, after that, they allowed it, that we see in our country to flourish in the high levels that we're seeing now. So in a nutshell and in conclusion as to who is the problem is the person that is in power, but unfortunately, he does not elect himself to be in power. He's elected by someone. That is the second level of the problem. The members of the ANC who elect corrupt, immoral people to lead us. And then the problem to lead them as the ANC. And then the biggest culprits are the voters who vote that these... I almost use a word that is not parliamentary. I almost use a word that is not parliamentary. But who vote for these criminals?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Because there are good people in politics, without any scandals, without any baggage. They are not in the pocket of anyone. People know about those people, but they decide not to vote for such people. They decide to vote for murderers. They look at, for example, the issue of political killings. Look at, for example, how even they were saying that even Udidi Mabuza was poisoned. Even Paul Mashatile was poisoned. They even tried to kill him. I can tell you now, it is not someone from outside of the ANC that would poison an ANC member, that would want to kill Paul Mashatile. It's them inside, meaning they are murderers. You as a voter, you decide, but you are looking at all of the people that are here in politics in South Africa. Your conscience is telling you the best people to lead us as a country, it is murderers. You are the problem. Don't look at the people that are, don't look at anyone else. You are a problem.
Sharp. South African bank that is owned by black people. I want you to, because it's a closing one. South African bank. I mean, we've had Capitec. Capitec is not our own. We've got Time Bank. Time Bank is not our own. We are told, stick to mutual bank. Bank, VBS, and then Natal. A commercial bank. Can we have a commercial bank that is black owned? We are in 32 years. What is stopping ANC from doing that?
They are shareholders of these commercial banks themselves. So
they stop other banks from competing with them.
Yes, because look at the legislation. Perhaps let me take you back to apartheid times. When the apartheid economy, they were basically, building the apartheid economy. They created laws that will lead to the flourishing of the Afrikaner companies that were there. They used the state as an instrument to benefit those companies so that those companies can grow. Now, look at how things are in our country now. There are laws that actually prohibit even municipalities from banking with some of the mutual banks. And you know that can you imagine, let's say you've got the Mthatha Mutual Bank. Let's say it is based in Gauteng for interest sake. And then laws do permit that Mthatha Mutual Bank will be able to accept deposits from municipalities, from SOEs, from provincial governments, from national governments. And you have government departments that are going to say, instead of banking with ABSA as a department, as an SOE, as a municipality, as anything that is under the state, we are not going to bank with ABSA, FNB, Investec, and all of these banks that we know. We're going to bank in that mutual bank that is owned by black people. I can tell you now, within years, the clientele of Mthatha Mutual Bank will be so much to an extent whereby it can get to the level or status of being a commercial bank. Now, who are the impediments? It is the very same ANC people who, in terms of the laws, they do not allow, the fact they've allowed the laws. Remember, capital in our country will have barriers to entry so that the new entrants must find it difficult so that they remain as the oligopolies in our country. All our industries in our country, you are going to have between 5 and 7 companies that are having over 90% of the market share. Go to the banking industry. We can count now. I don't think we're going to reach over 7 commercial banks. It's going to be Nedbank, FNB, ABSA, Standard Bank, Capitec. Which one?
And the other ones, it will be your merchant, rent merchant, what? Hiding and but those are the main 5.
But the main 5.
Yes.
We can go to telecommunications. It's going to be MTN, Vodacom, Telkom,
Cell C. Yeah.
You're not going to reach even 5. So that is the entire structure of our economy. Now, what is true about capital, especially in an economy whereby it's oligopolies, whereby you just have 5 5 companies. Those companies are going to have barriers to entry, and they are going to influence the people that are in power, have these barriers to entry, so that the entire market, when it comes to, for example, telecommunications, ATA, if I can remember, tried ungena, were they, so you're going to find other companies. They can try enter the space or the economy, but they're not going to make it because there are barriers to entry.
Is this, because, many years ago I went to China. We were counting how many banks we saw in one city. I mean, we counted over 10 different banks, and they all have their own ATMs. And there are ATMs that are just generic. But it was a lot of banks, funny names bank, like a communication bank, for example. We saw a lot of things. And it made us start to think, why do we not have these banks? So is this an indication that we were defeated in CODESA? And why is it that people are not telling us what happened in CODESA? This is the last one, and I hope you don't tempt me to ask you the last one. So please close it in 2 minutes.
In CODESA, or in fact, the entire transition period from apartheid rule to democracy, black leaders who were in exile, were imprisoned, were co-opted. Then when they were co-opted, they became part of the system. So when you look at Ramaphosa, don't look at Ramaphosa outside of the system. He's part of the system. Like what you said earlier, where he said, I'm a mine owner. Do you think I will advocate or advance for policies that will take what I have as mines and benefit the South African citizens? That will tell you he's part of the system. But guess what? He's not the only one. If you're to check the members' declaration of members of parliament, you will see majority of the ministers, they've got shares in all of these institutions. If it's not banks, now so disappointed to find that even COSATU leaders who were advocating that we need to do away with labor brokers, they were part owners or shareholders of labor brokering companies. It shows how much all of these leaders, they are traitors, they are sellouts. They decided to advance their own narrow, selfish interests instead of advancing the interests of the people. So yes, we're defeated because the people that were supposed to advance the interests of black people, instead of doing that, they were co-opted. That is why the biggest defenders of the system now, like your Groenewalds, like your, like your DA, your Helen Zilles, they don't even need to push back on when you are saying land expropriation without compensation. They don't even need to push back when you speak about the state bank, about transformation. They've got ANC leaders to do that for them. They've got all of these people to do that for them. That is why you'll never hear even them. Look, ask a question about land expropriation without compensation. It's the very same ANC leaders who are going to say it's not going to work. Was it not Thabo Mbeki who are saying it is not working, it can never work? Was it not, Tito Mboweni, who was, when he was not minister, who was saying that perhaps there needs to be a state bank, but when he became minister, dololo action, because they become part of the system. So if you are a person who wants to, defeat the system, you can't be voting for ANC. You can't be voting for any party in the GNU because Bona and the system, they're like this. Thank you.
Mashiane Politically Incorrect. It's been a long one. There he is, the servant of the people. For obvious reasons, we can't ask him all the questions that you wanted because we are limited. We've got limitations here where we work. But look, man, coalitions. I wanted to ask him about coalition with MK, and I know you wanted to hear that 2026 elections are coming. They're going to be working with MK. But next time we find them, next time we'll speak about that. That doesn't for coming. When our doors open and we get an opportunity to find you in the studio, please hit our calls and come. And when there are complex matters in the National Assembly for you to explain to us, maybe man find 5 minutes, 7 minutes, just to say, okay, Mashiane, this is how it happens. Because sometimes you sitting there in Cape Town, we are here in Gauteng, we find something and then we try to speak here. We misconstrue what you guys wanted to say, and then we are called propagandists when we are not. Mashiane Politically Incorrect, thank you.